You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
You're listening to Mission Log the Orville, an episode-by-episode discussion of the adventures of the crew of the USS Orville. Welcome to another episode of Mission Log the Orville, where each week we discuss an episode of the Orville and open up that jar of pickles to discuss the meanings, morals, messages, and to see if the episode aligns with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy.
Except, Mike, this week we're joined by executive producer of the Orville, David, a good man. Or, as we like to call him, David, a good writer, who wrote the episodes Krill, Deflectors, and The Road Not Taken. I'm sorry, I will say his name correctly. David A. Goodman.
I like David A. I'm sorry.
David A.
You can talk.
I like David A. Goodman. That's
You
not bad.
are a good man.
David A. Goodwriter, which we
that
did.
too, yeah.
If you look back at our episode, The Krill, we were wondering if you were not a gnome de plume. But no, you certainly are not. You're a graduate of the University of Chicago. You've written for shows including Golden Girls, Wings, Dream On, Futurama, Star Trek Enterprise, and Family Guy. You serve... or served, I'm not sure, as the president of the
Past
Writers
tense.
Guild of America West, past tense.
Wow.
And you're graciously joining us today. And before we get started, as always, if you're listening or watching us on the Roddenberry YouTube channel, let us know your thoughts, ideas. Tell us what we missed at ML_the Orville on Twitter, Mission Log Pod on Facebook. You can always email us at missionlog-theorville at roddenberry.com. And if you're watching this on the Roddenberry YouTube channel, hit like and subscribe. And remember, we may use your comments on an upcoming episode. So, Mr. Goodman, can we call you
Yes.
Dave, David?
Whatever
David
you
A?
want. Call me whatever you
All
want.
right, good deal.
Call me late for dinner.
Well, fellow New Yorker, I saw you're from the Bronx. And
I'm not from the Bronx. The Wikipedia
No?
got that wrong. It's hilarious.
Where are you
I don't
from?
know where that. I'm from a town, suburb of New York City called New Rochelle.
Oh, I know exactly where that is. We have been talking about the Dick Van Dyke Show.
There you
and that was...
They were set. That show was Dick Van Dyke's family lived in New Rochelle in the show because Carl Reiner, who created the show, lived in New Rochelle when he used to write for Sid Caesar, which was what the show was based on.
Outstanding. And as we all know, Gordon Malloy did not do a very good job, apparently, of Pictionarying Dick Van Dyke. And we can only imagine what that ended up looking like in the episode Lasting Impressions.
That was I think it was a sort of a subtle reference to a Family Guy episode where the FCC went crazy and started editing shows, and the Dick Van Dyke Show was called the Blank Von Blank Show. The FCC was.
So I stream online and I play games, and people can do
Right.
like they can type messages and it can get read out loud. But because there's like things like that, where basically it's its own auto FCC,
Right.
Dick Van Dyke didn't do well when someone tried to type that. And sometimes there's like a mod that it'll change words for you.
Right.
And so it went like Rainbows Von Flower or something. And we're like, what are you talking about? But so I'm excited to talk to you about so many things, David, primarily because I had to watch the Orville in order to do this job. So,
Right.
Imagine how I feel about that. But
Twisting, took a lot of arm twisting to get you.
Oh, God.
That's fine.
Hate it. But then I just found myself craving more of the same humor and attention to detail, and watched every single episode of Family Guy recently.
Every episode?
Every single episode. And I had watched plenty because it's a phenomenon that no one could have gotten away from.
Right.
But it was actually really odd because I watched it from the most recent season to the last, or to the first, which
Wow, that is interesting.
it is interesting. I didn't know I was going to do this. I was just watching the most recent season.
Right.
And I was like, well, here we are. And,
Right.
But it's interesting to watch them degrade in humor in terms of sensibility. Like, oh, it's okay to still make fun of gay people or whatever.
Yeah, oh, that's really interesting. You're right. There's plenty of stuff that the show. I'm not on the show anymore, but there's probably plenty of stuff we couldn't do now that we used to do. Yeah.
That's interesting.
And
you're talking about
so, right? Like
when you mentioned the FCC going nuts, I remember they had the bar across Peter's chin.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it looked a little too much like a different body part.
Right.
Well, so I like that because and honestly, I'm going to let Mike do all the talking and questions, but that is interesting, and I hadn't considered that when you guys are in the writing room and it's like, ooh, let's throw a joke in about things that have a shared experience. How much are you guys doing that, or how much do you feel like you have the leeway to do that in the show?
Well, I don't. I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
I don't know that I ask questions very clearly either. So you did the Dick Van Dyke joke in the Orville is a nod to the Family Guy FCC experience because so many of the same people work on the show together. Right. How often are you like, ooh, let's see if we can get this jab in, or...
Yeah, we're not really doing that. I mean, I think that and I'm pretty sure Seth wrote that joke, so if Seth is taking from Family Guy, he's allowed, because Family Guy is his.
Right.
We're not. We're usually pretty clear. There's a pretty clear line that we don't want people watching Orville to think we're taking stuff from Family Guy. But every once in a while, something like that slips in.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna let Mike resume I just have all these thoughts.
Yeah, no kidding. So yeah, we often go on tangents, and
that's great.
We have a ton of fun recording the show. I have no idea if our dozens of listeners have any idea listening to it or not, but we have.
They're still listening, so that's good.
This is true.
So as we go through, we'll talk. I'd like to talk a little bit about kind of your background as well as how you got to the Orville. We do always like to hit on meanings, morals, messages, and how those are worked into the fabric of the show. Right. We won't get into any spoilers about season 3. Obviously, we know that's off limits. But it seems to me, and I'm interested in your background. I know you've told it 100 times now that I know you're from New Rochelle and probably watched Star Trek on WPIX like I did growing up, Channel 11.
That's absolutely right. 6 o'clock every night.
Exactly right. And so just a little bit, if you could just sort of tell us about how your background as a comedy writer on shows like The Golden Girls turned into Futurama, and then kind of more into more sci-fi at that point.
Well, I think I probably, when I pictured myself as wanting to be a television writer, it was to write Star Trek. Like I really started thinking about that in high school and a little bit of college. I'd read a book in high school called The Making of Star Trek, which was about the making of the original series. And if you're not from Los Angeles back then, you didn't even really know that writing for television was a job. Right. Most people who watch television, especially back then, thought the actors were making it up as they go along. Like, you really didn't even picture that somebody was writing TV, writing movies, and to read this book and to sort of understand that, oh, wait, there's somebody in a room coming up with these ideas and writing them down. And that was really exciting to me. There was no new Star Trek then when I was in high school. We were watching reruns. Uh-huh. But then when I graduated college, I found that my way into the business was through comedy, which was very lucky for me. I ended up working for a comedy writer in New York City. I was an assistant to a writer named Gloria Banta, and she had been a sitcom writer in the 1970s on the Mary Tyler Moore Show and a show called Rhoda. For real comedy nerds, the character Tony
Rhoda Morgenstern.
Morgenstern. Yeah. The character Tony Banta, who was played by on Taxi, was named after her.
I love Rhoda and Taxi.
Yeah,
so
those
much.
are great shows. Anyway, Gloria encouraged me to write. I had a writing partner. She was a comedy contact, and so I used that, and she ended up getting me and my partner hired on Golden Girls in 1988. So the fact that I could write comedy was a great way in. I'd grown up watching so many sitcoms, and I think I really understood the format in a way that helped me to imitate it in my writing samples, and that's how I got hired. So I worked in comedy for, pretty much 10 straight years, going from show to show. But I was always so interested in science fiction, and Star Trek at that point was on the air, and I pitched freelance scripts to all the Star Trek shows.
Right.
Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. I went in, I kept going, trying to get a freelance episode. Never got any success, but they always invited me back, and I made friends with a bunch of those writers. Brandon Braga, obviously, is that. Towards the end of the 90s, as the new millennium is approaching, I get this job on this animated show, Family Guy, which was in its third season. It had been canceled already once, and it was about to get canceled again, but I was on it for that third season. And I met Seth, and Seth is a giant Star Trek fan. Family Guy's canceled. Seth calls the guys at Futurama and gets me a job interview at Futurama. Oh, wow. And they hire me at Futurama, where I write the episode Where No Fan Has Gone Before, which reunited the surviving original cast of Star Trek.
Well, before we started recording, he asked how long Jessica and I have been doing this, and I like to say we've been doing it for about 25 episodes, about 8 good ones.
Do you get that joke, Jessica?
I don't say it, but I don't know that joke. I know some. So I have yet to do the Futurama rewatch. So I know some Futurama.
Well, in this Futurama episode, Fry, Star Trek has been forbidden and wiped from human culture in the 30th century, and Fry is bringing it back by finding the heads of the original cast, the heads in jars.
Oh, I remember this.
And in talking to Leonard Nimoy's head, who's in the Head Museum, says, "You remember Star Trek? 79 episodes, about 30 good ones," which was my attitude, honestly, about the original series. I'm a giant original series fan. I've written books about it, but I think that we think about 30 of those episodes are great, and the rest are, oh. And that joke was the only joke. We played it at a Star Trek convention. Only joke didn't get a laugh.
Oh, no.
Nobody liked that joke.
Oh, my gosh. I think you're wrong, though. So I drop into Star Trek, the original series as well. Yeah. I was forced to watch Next Generation in order to do an improvised show of it.
Really?
I was grateful for it. I was actually afraid to...
Right.
I think I was afraid to pit a new captain against my captain, kind of like Doctor Who. Like no one's gonna knock David Tennant off the tadpole for me.
Right.
Tadpole, that thing.
Not tadpole's a fish.
Totem pole.
Totem pole. I don't know if we can say totem.
Top of the totem pole.
So
maypole.
Anyway, there it is. No, maypole's perfect. You'll find that it's my charm is my inability to find words, but I'm grateful that I had to watch it because it was kind of cool to see. Basically, Stewart's character be a different kind of evolution of Captain. Essentially, it was really awesome.
Yeah, no, it's a great series, and so I was on Futurama, and that led to a job interview. That Star Trek, the reuniting the original cast, got some press and got some attention from. The guys at Star Trek Enterprise. I kind of pushed to get submitted there, and they had seen the episode, and a writer named Chris Black was a big Futurama fan, and he said, "Let's talk to David." And it goes to Brannon, and I have my interview with Brannon. And the thing I always tell about that interview is I'd been reading interviews with Brannon Braga for 20 years, and maybe not that long, but at least 10. And so I knew how he felt about Star Trek, so I just was parroting back to him things he'd already said, which he then agreed with because they were things he had said. But I was like, I think the thing about Star Trek is you can write for a Western or a mystery, and that's something I read him say in an interview, and he loved that because he'd said it.
The sound of our own voice.
We do, and then it sounds like somebody else is just as smart as you are. So.
Yeah, right. But he hired me, and that so I got to write for Star Trek Enterprise. So that was probably the full shift.
Well, that's really smart because I feel like when I've heard people talk about how to enter the business, the way to do it is read the trade papers, like know what's going on, like immerse yourself in the world that you want to be in, essentially.
I think that's really important. I think that's I think people want some comfort level with you, that you understand what their job is and whatever you can do to educate yourself about what that job is. Because whenever you're getting hired by somebody, you're there to help them do their job. And that's a really important thing.
Yeah, and that's really good advice. Not being in the entertainment industry, unless this counts, I'll defer to my co-host for that.
Industry is a wide-ranging thing.
But even in a field such as aviation or engineering, staying up on current events, reading the current trades, your current technical manuals, if you will, like Scotty would do on his time off. Then there's then that keeps you up to date for those sort of things. So you find yourself on Enterprise. And you get a call, I think, from an unemployed buddy of yours who's looking for a job, right? Is that an oversimplification?
It is. Seth had plenty going on. But he was a giant Star Trek fan. Seth is obviously a giant Star Trek fan. Family Guy had been canceled, but he was writing some movies, and he kept saying to me, Family Guy's coming back, which I didn't believe him. And Rick Berman, while I was at Enterprise, Rick Berman's kid introduced him to Family Guy.
Oh, no way.
So suddenly I'm getting all these calls from Rick saying, how did you get away with that? And I'm like, what are you talking about? This Ted Turner screwing a dog joke. How did you get away with that? And I'm sorry, you can bleep that if you want.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. We're okay with bestiality.
So Rick was super into Family Guy. And I said, well, I know, Seth is a big Star Trek fan, and there was a one-line character in an episode I wrote, The Forgotten, became Ensign Rivers. He didn't actually have a name in that episode. And I just said to Brandon, why don't we give this to Seth? He'd love to do it. And Brandon was like, absolutely. And that's actually the beginning of Brandon and Seth's relationship. They became friends. That's how, and Seth was such a huge fan of Brandon's, and Brandon's such a huge fan of Seth. And here are two real incredible creators, and they have done Cosmos together, and obviously Brandon was on the Orville with us. But that's where it started with me sort of saying, well, let's put Seth in a Star Trek episode. It was a blast. He's great. And then after I left, they brought him back. Actually, it was even after we were back doing Family Guy, they brought Ensign Rivers back in that 2 or 3 part episode where Trip goes to the Columbia.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome, but it really looks like, it seems to me that you're kind of the straw that stirred the drink, that,
that's how I like to present it. Absolutely. That's how I like
Enterprise, and then you introduce these folks, and then Cosmos, and then the Orville, and
I should be much more successful, is what you're saying, Mike, and I get it. I agree.
This is a tier of success being on an interview podcast with us. By the way. Very few people.
Right here, I'm at the top of the heap.
You're killing it.
It definitely is. So you mentioned The Forgotten.
Yes.
North Star.
Let's not talk about Judgment a little bit. And my favorite episode, Precious Cargo. Is that your favorite?
I think that was the one you were going to say you didn't want to talk about.
No, that's fine. It's considered like the 4th worst of all the series. Playboy did, I think, like the list of all the Star Trek episodes. Do you remember that? And it was online. I think
I wouldn't
Precious Cargo was really close to the bottom.
That's funny. I don't think it's as bad as people have to say. Like,
it's bad.
But an episode that is quite good.
Thank you.
Is Judgment, and that's why I kind of brought it up last. With J.G. Hertzler. And he came back to play a Klingon attorney who was imprisoned, and it really helped to flesh out, I think, the Klingon race, the Klingon species, as far as, they weren't all military at one point. There were artists and lawyers and people in different fields, and kind of the military took over, and that's sort of how they got to where they are now.
I think that, to me, that my inspiration for that was, we were, at the time I wrote it, we were in the war in Iraq, And I realized that, like, for people around the world in a lot of countries, the Americans are people in uniform, are our soldiers. Like, that's their view of America, is the soldiers who are suddenly in their country. And that's the Klingons. The Klingons we see are the soldiers. But there's got to be accountants at home. There's got to be doctors at home. There's got to be teachers at home. Like, we don't see them. We see the soldiers. And that was kind of what my inspiration of the show was, to say, here's this lawyer whose parents were not soldiers. He's not a soldier. And it was sort of talking about how I viewed America, that we were becoming at that moment in time, after 9/11, there was really an emphasis on a militarization of our goals around the world. And positive or negative, I wasn't even sort of casting a political view on it. It was more, we were attacked, and we were like, we're going in. And that I thought was an interesting thing to talk about with the Klingons, that was what happened to their society.
Yeah, they're kind of behind that facade that you see on their front lines. There there is a deeper and broader citizenry that you can see. Yeah. Excellent. Now, J.G. Hertzler.
Great, so great in that part.
So good. Last name. Root word of his last name is Hertz. Was that inspiration for the Avis?
You're really reaching there, Mike.
Okay, good deal. I will strike the question off the table.
No, the Hertz Avis is up.
Oh my God!
What? Come on, Mike.
All right.
I think it was Seth who wrote the Avis "We Try Harder" joke, and if it wasn't, it was another writer who wrote it, but that's probably why we called him Avis, just so we could do that joke. So
I think that's what I thought was, how great would it be and you can milk that joke in season 3, I'm sure too.
Oh, it is the gift that keeps on giving, I think. Yep. Now, as far as our boss Rod Roddenberry he had some specific questions one night about the humor and the use of it, and the show when it first came out. I think people have often said Family Guy in space, and clearly that's not what the show is. But I kind of wanted to get your take on the use of humor in the show, and just a little bit of background before I get started. Gene Roddenberry took a format that he was familiar with, which was action adventure westerns, and kind of combined that with sci-fi to tell these stories from a global perspective. Using that kind of wagon train to the stars format. And I look at, Seth MacFarlane and his ability to use satire to look at issues, human issues from a global perspective, and kind of combine satire with sci-fi. You had mentioned in one of your interviews before about kind of the difference between satire and spoof, and you said they're different things, but From what I heard, I don't know that you really got into what the difference is and what sort of the pitfalls are.
Well, I think that to me and I don't know that, like, I don't think Orville satire. I mean, at all. I mean, I think that what happened with the show at the beginning, where that confusion that you say of like being Family Guy in space, is more a function of what Seth's brand is. So that Fox trying to sell the show to Seth's fan base, which is huge, wanted an emphasis on the humor. So there was confusion, I think, when people started watching the show and saw that, in fact, we were taking the science fiction element and the dramatic element very seriously. And more seriously as the show went on.
Yes.
I mean, I think that, and Seth himself has said this, that he stopped leaning on the jokes too. I think there's nobody funnier than Seth, as far as I'm concerned. Nobody who understands humor and what makes people laugh better than he does. And so he, I think, in the beginning of the show, was leaning on that as his, because that's where his expertise is.
And there's a theory that he didn't want to, but was forced to also, not forced to, but asked to buy Fox because of his penchant towards that.
No, it's not true. I mean, I was there for all of it. I mean,
awesome.
We started out writing the scripts, and there was a real function on we've got to punch this up, and we would gather writers together to do punch up, and he really wanted the comedy
humor to be an element.
And it still is. I think that to me, it's character comedy now. It's the jokes are a little less hard than they were in the beginning, and that he got comfortable saying, you know what, it's enough that these are normal people. That's how he's shifting the format, as opposed to Space Heroes, where I think if you watch original Star Trek and even Next Generation, there's a heroic quality to all the characters. They don't quite have the same human foibles that our characters have, and that's where our comedy comes from, and it's character comedy. But now we really are much more comfortable with the drama, with the dramatic element.
So this is something that Mike and I talk about often, especially as we have the good fortune of watching the show, analyzing it together, knowing what each other likes about the show, etc. So one of the benefits of getting to watch the show together is, and analyze it as opposed to just sit in a chair and enjoy it, is watching how well you get us to know and love these characters so that the humor does evolve naturally.
Yeah.
And so we're laughing with them, or we're laughing at them, as opposed to here's this joke that's kind of ham-fisted in, which again will make us laugh too, but it's kind of, you've made us successfully care about these people and invest in them.
Well, that's the key. Obviously, that's what you're hoping for. I think there's a combination of writing and acting. The cast is really, it's a phenomenal cast. And they all, in their own way, work to create the reality of these characters from the scripts that we give them. But it is always about finding that balance and trying to understand who these people are on this spaceship.
When we started to cover the show early on, we noticed that so much time was spent in character development. Obviously, episode 1, Old Wounds, you really kind of got to know Ed and Kelly. Jump right into Command Performance, and we're exploring Alara Katan's character. From there, we get into About a Girl, and we get something about the Moclan culture, specifically Bortus, and how being part of the Union has changed him. But this character development that we see on this show it's amazing, and it's something that we don't see in other sci-fi, and we didn't see in Star Trek the original series. We got some of it later, say season 3 and beyond in Next Gen. But anybody who's worked in an office environment, like some of the funniest things I've ever heard, some of the hardest laughter I've ever, that has ever exploded out of my body, has been with coworkers doing silly stuff.
Right.
So to think that you can't have funny stuff happen in kind of a serious, high stakes environment I think that's a false dichotomy.
Well, it's interesting too, is that people talk about that, and I think Orville has its balance. All the successful science fiction franchises balance humor and drama. All the Marvel movies and shows, Star Wars, there's humor in all of it. That's all we're doing is our version. So it's a style of humor that's specific to our show and our situations, but so much successful genre Buffy Vampire Slayer mix drama and comedy, and because life mixes drama and comedy.
And you mentioned it a minute ago, and Jessica and I know we talked about this early on, was the relatability of the characters, because they're not perfect. They weren't all first in their class. They weren't all, top 0.001 percenters of their field. They're relatable folks. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that to me too is, like, I always talk about this, like the 2-part episode, our 2-part episode, Road Not Taken, was inspired by one of my favorite Next Gen episodes, Yesterday's Enterprise. Now, in Yesterday's Enterprise, the thing that changed history was the ship, that the Enterprise C being pulled out of a battle and not rescuing the Klingon colony.
They were under attack. There was a violent volley of photon torpedoes, and
yeah.
We were here.
And so that's how history changes in Star Trek. And our timeline, it's because Ed didn't get laid. And that to me encapsulates the difference.
I didn't even phrase it that way.
The difference between Star Trek and Orville is that our universe turns on that, and that's really about, like,
can't we all relate to that, David? Just that
I absolutely can.
That one person that didn't call back.
More than one. Anyway.
I cry. I laugh because I cry.
But that, to me, that makes it a relatable. That makes our sci-fi universe relatable,
and it does. And the fact that Ed kept tabs on Kelly and knew where she was searching, and there's I want to go in about 5 different directions right now, but we'll just kind of keep that to the relatability of it. I did want to talk a little bit about the genesis of The Road Not Taken, which, from what I understand, the previous episode, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, was kind of set to be a standalone episode. Memory Wipe worked. Boom.
We couldn't figure out the ending, and we were having a lot of trouble figuring out how do we end this in a way that's satisfying. And so, really, because we were having so much fun with the 2 different versions of Kelly, and we wanted to send Kelly back, and we thought about not sending her back, but that felt a little similar to Second Chances, the Next Gen episode, which had that great ending where the second Riker doesn't go back. Goes back and becomes a Maquis in Deep Space Nine. And and then suddenly we were pitching on it, and I said, well, what if she does go back and changes history? And I started to think about the fact that Ed and Claire's kids saved the universe.
Right.
And that if Ed didn't get Orville, Claire's kids wouldn't meet Isaac, and Isaac would have led the Kalan invasion of Earth. And we were just sort of talking. That's like one of the I think probably one of my favorite contributions that I made to the show was taking things we'd already done and twisting it and making that final episode. And it was such a blowout episode. I mean, we did so much great sort of almost Star Wars-y action in that episode, but still at the center of it is our relationships.
It really is. So I want to so much I want to talk about, and you mentioned Ty and Marcus and their relationship with Isaac, and all little Ty wanted to do was work the tractor beam, and I want to we'll talk about the comics, the graphic novels maybe a little bit later on, but when he was like, "Hey Mom, I got to work the tractor beam," she's like, "Hey, get out of the way, kid." It was too funny. But you mentioned kind of building a story and seeing sort of what's at the center of it. Do you work? And I don't, since I have no idea what it's like to be in a writer's room or work your craft. Does the story kind of start with the message, moral, and meaning and build itself out, or does it kind of start with a situation and then kind of fill itself in, or is it a combination of the two?
Yeah, it's a combination of the two. I mean, again, it starts really with Seth, and Seth is always open. He'll let the show go where it needs to go. He'll have ideas, or we'll have ideas for all those things. A show about my first episode really just came out of the Krill. Like, we need to do a Krill episode. We've mentioned the Krill. We'd shown them in the pilot. We'd shown them in a couple episodes. Let's do an episode telling us more about them and what do we want to say about them. And we always knew, Seth and I had always talked about this sort of religious spacefaring species that thinks anybody who's not in their Bible isn't worth living, and that we're obviously talking about in some ways our views of religion. And And that's where that's to me is an example of it sort of starting from a place of what are the kinds of things we want to say, but then also building this Krill society in a way that's believable and also fun. That was a really fun episode. It was John Cassar's first directing episode, and he obviously became our producer director and directed half the episodes in season 3, and some was such a force in season 2.
Right, we did a deep dive into his kind of entry into and contribution to the show, coming from 24 and being super more of an action, as he put it, the torture guy, and getting into this, and didn't know if he could do sci-fi until he saw the script and was like, I can do this. And
he's amazing.
Boy, you talk about an ominous ending to that episode, though. The kids weren't our enemies. Oh, they will be.
They will be. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very, very well done. And I couldn't figure out why. And I guess we're touching on spoilers. I can't imagine somebody listening to this episode without catching episodes of the Orville. But I did wonder at length why Michaela McManus was uncredited in that episode, and then lo and behold, we found out why later on.
You mean when she comes
sequel.
in season 2?
She was uncredited in the episode.
Not in Krill. She's uncredited in
that's right. She was uncredited when she came back.
Which is smart because no one has an idea that character is her.
Sure.
That was a specific request.
Now, I knew her as Lindsay Strauss from, One Tree Hill, so I picked her out right away, and I thought, why doesn't she have a credit in the story? Yeah. But then I needed Jessica to explain that to me, and explain it to me again today, obviously.
You remember things. It's just you're just so excited.
I'm just so excited. So I look into episodes like some of my. The ones that kind of touched me the most, if the stars should appear, obviously I think there's a message, moral meaning there of, the danger of using religion to control people, the danger of sort of following a religion to the detriment of being able to accurately assess reality. Another episode that I think is very good and very timely is Majority Rule, the runaway, social media.
So those are 2 episodes. Well, for and the Stars Shall Appear, Seth wrote 2 scripts by himself, really with no help from anybody. So the first one, Old Wounds, he turned that out, and then he decided to write a second episode that he wrote, and the Stars Should Appear. I read it and gave him thoughts, but he had already done all the work, so those are really his. The Majority Rule came out of, again, really, let's do something commenting on social media, commenting on canceling, commenting on that, and the out of control nature of that. And so it was really constructing something, constructing a story around that. Around that concept. So in that episode, we really were starting from what do we want to say.
Excellent. And you played a role in About a Girl. Is that a true statement? Either
I was there.
I
was there. Are you referring to something specific that I said something?
No.
How dare you? We really are sandbagging you right now.
No, I read that Seth sort of came to you with that script for your thoughts, and that there was, and kind of you liked your thoughts, and.
Are you referencing something I said at some other point? Because I'm not remembering.
Nothing cryptically. I just,
we worked together on that script and figuring out that episode. I mean, that was the writers' room at that point. Yeah. The writers' room was working together, and we were trying to really figure out, what is it that we want to say about this, and we're really in edgy territory with that episode, and it's probably the best episode of season 1 in terms of its really risky, it's really saying something, and it's really kind of unforgiving in the ending, and that thing has the Bordis-Clyden relationship from that, obviously you saw in season 2, it had ramifications, and I like that about the show too, is that we don't forget. We pay the audience the compliment that they're watching and say go back to things.
Totally, yeah.
And that was an episode. I mean, you just jumped right in. I think that was episode number 3. It followed Command Performance, and it was right into About a Girl. Because part of the reason why Clyden couldn't take command when Ed and Kelly were gone was because he was tending to his egg.
Sitting on the egg. Yeah.
Sitting on his egg. And that was an episode where Jessica and I really had a good discussion of. If anybody wants to go back and listen to episode 3 About a Girl, feel free to. But there were gender reassignment issues.
Yeah.
I felt like the story had more to do with subjugating female voices, female points of view, surgically. What the Mocklins essentially did surgically what we do culturally in many cases. Although there is your own right to choose, there's issues there. There's having a child and just supporting them to be the best they can be, without making up their minds for them in any case. So wonderful episode with so much food for thought. And again, not necessarily answers, but I did want to ask you this question, because it seems like every episode of The Orville has a conversation somewhere embedded in the middle somewhere. It could be in the mess hall, it could be in somebody's quarters or somebody's writing room. And they just sort of discuss the situation and ask a question. On Mission Log, we like to talk about the "you see Timmy" moment. Where somebody says, "Well, you see, Timmy," and Captain James T. Kirk was big on the "you see, Timmy" moment. He would say, "We call it freedom, and you're going to like it a lot," or "These words must apply to everybody."
Charlie, there's a million things you can have, and a million things you can't have. Yeah,
exactly. So you have these "you see, Timmy" moments, but the Orville tends to do what I think is a much more intelligent, much more 21st century tact, and that is to ask the question. And sometimes they ask a question like, if we're not going to live by the principles upon which the union was founded, what exactly are we defending? And in About a Girl, they asked the question that went something like, are we going too far in applying our sense of morals to their culture? And is that an intentional sort of break from the episode that gets written in to sort of discuss the meanings, morals, and messages?
It's not a break. No, not at all. I mean, and this, we see it as an opportunity.
Right.
So in a certain way, that was inspired by a conversation that we were having about allies the United States has. So what does that mean for us, as where we talk about freedom, where we, as a country, we talk about freedom, we talk about everybody having their right to, their right to pursuit of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and yet one of our valued allies in the Middle East does not share that at all.
Right.
What does that say about us and our values if we're allied with a country that treats its people that way? And that's really where that came out of, and that we thought, because there's also other allies that the United States has who have questionable ways of treating their people. And that's really where that came from. So that's part of the conversation that we have as we're working out this story. Is we're digging. We don't want to just stop with what's happening in the story. We want to say, what does this mean? What are we saying about the Mocklins? We want there to be depth to the alien society that we're making.
Excellent. And the other thing that, Star Trek has its fun episodes, right? It's iMud, it's Fistful of Datas, it's a piece of the action.
Right.
It really does seem like every episode of The Orville that we've covered in the first 2 seasons really does have that societal or moral question that gets asked and shed light upon. And is that kind of part of your mission statement? Is it?
I think that it starts with Seth and the writers he hired. So Seth is a fan of the shows that he grew up with, Star Trek, Twilight Zone. These were all that kind of science fiction that he's read. Those were all things that had something to say. That Roddenberry, Rod Serling, these were writers who were using science fiction to say things. And we're now in a period in television where you have to be careful. You have to be careful because of societal norms are changing, and people react strongly, and we have a strong cancel culture. I think that cancel culture affects everybody. Both sides of the spectrum, political spectrum, can be canceled. And so we have an opportunity with Orville to say things and in that science fiction realm, and it's something people can hear without reacting in that way that leads people to being canceled. And so we're back in a certain way. We're back in time to a period where you have to be careful what you say, and that science fiction gives you the opportunity to say some things you wouldn't actually be able to say on a normal show anymore.
Is that... Well, like, one of the things I'm hearing, just getting to listen to you, and it's exciting, is, like, obviously you get to work with people that and I think this is when you're most successful in life, is not only are you working on something that you love, you're working with people that you love as well, too. And it seems like that's been your lot in life, is that you get to be working on things you like with people that esteem you, etc. So there is a kinship in ideals, or like an exchange of ideals through that as well.
Right.
Like, you obviously all, to some extent, agree on some things. So how prevalent is the conversation?
We disagree. We disagree on a lot too. That's
exciting though too, because that's respect, isn't it?
Yeah. No. Absolutely. And it's. I mean, Seth and I have had knockdown, drag out arguments over all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, we're still friends, or at least I hope so. But that's part of the conversation too, is that we're making our points.
Because you never are explicit, especially in the Orville. You're never explicitly saying there's one right way, and it isn't on its high horse. No,
we're not. We're not delivering a political tract. Some people might say that, as we talked about earlier, or how we've presented religion. Some might say it's anti-religion. On the other hand, we look at the Mocklins. To me, the Mocklin Society, and one of our best characters on the show, Bortus, is full on Mocklin,
right?
And he can be tortured about his society, but he believes in it, and that's we're saying something positive there too. That you have an acceptance from your society. So we're never going to have a clear cut. Same thing with the Krill. The people who are part, they're a Krill that we like. So, like, it's
right.
That's.
I
also...
definitely ship him and Michaela McManus. I'm like, I ship that. I shouldn't, but I do.
Right. Yeah.
Well, there's some things that you get credit for too, or at least I give you credit for, by bringing, like, in About a Girl. Because you're right. Like, I have to imagine the cancel culture conversation is prevalent in every writer room right now. It has to be.
Absolutely.
Which is good, because I'm not going to say it's a bad thing to make yourself a little bit more like, okay, how are we going to affect... It's not even so much, we can't say this. I'm lamenting that. It's recognizing that there might be some people that you can offend, and how, looking outside yourself, gaining more empathy.
Yeah.
But you also have... Now that it's on Hulu, it's a little bit different, but there was a benefit, and maybe you can speak to it, to being on Fox and bringing conversations that weren't on the forefront on major network television, like About a Girl and stuff. So there was like a cool responsibility that you guys had with going, hey, we're not going to tell you exactly what the right thing is here, but let's talk about gender reassignment and those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I think that the business of how people watch television is changing enough so that the fact that we're moving to Hulu doesn't in any way limit that. People still will find it, and
if not more so, yeah.
Right. I mean, I think the audience is getting sort of spread out over all the streamers now in a way, and but yes, at that moment in time, before the streamers had really taken over, to be on Fox and to be reaching that audience and saying these things to our audience. Exploring these issues was exciting, and that hopefully that audience, we reached that audience with Hulu. I mean, Hulu was very successful. I'm not really too worried about it.
And I wouldn't be, but I guess I think it's just more exciting to me and commendable that you all didn't walk away from that opportunity, but instead doubled down on it and said, we're not going to be afraid, because I really do believe that if you're honest and you do your gosh darned best, the cream's gonna rise to the top, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. No, and again, that really does start with Seth, who wants this, who's, he's got a vision, but he's also an amazing collaborator, and he hires people who he respects, and that the staff of the show, all those writers and producers whose names you see are people whose opinions he respects, and we all work together to take some risks and as you say, really double down. That was really important to us.
I love that. Yeah, because I think you get a timeless piece of art and TV in the Orville because of that. If you just have a bunch of yes people in a room, if you have a bunch of people that are afraid of what Seth's going to think or what have you, you're not really getting the art that you want to tell out there, I don't think. And it is indicative of the quality of the show and how it gets better. I'm so heartened to hear that you guys can disagree. I want to work with people that go, you might not be right, Jessica. Might call me and go, you bungled that a little bit. Because I'm going to grow at the end of the day, too. Right. So I think it's cool. It's exciting to hear that.
Yeah, oh, that's good.
And I love that the point that the show often comes down to is asking the question, asking the audience to consider a topic without spoon feeding them an answer or telling them what you think is right. Because life is all about asking the right questions. The answer is always going to change. It's going to change as society changes. It's going to change as you change, as you kind of grow and mature. And but the question, I think, is always going to exist in that way. Can I ask you a little bit about how you write leadership and competent leadership versus leaders that maybe have some room for growth? Is that something that you discuss in the writer's room?
Well, those aren't mutually exclusive.
No, they're certainly not.
That's not. You made that sound like you do one or the other.
Yeah.
It's I think that we all sort of carry around that sort of ideal of the person who we want to be, and the person, the parental figures in our lives, the mothers and fathers we want to be, the boss, and so that those are, you want people who are going to have the right answer. You also want people who are going to listen to you and what you need, and that's always again, I think those are writers have ideals that they invest into characters, and Ed and Kelly, I think, represent those ideals of that writer's room, of who we'd like our mother and father to be, I guess is what I would say.
I have a question. You don't have to answer it because I don't think it's spoilery, but this is, again, we know that I like to ship things. Do you agree that Ed and Kelly shouldn't be together because of their power position?
You mean they...
So she rests on the laurels of that.
Wait, I'm not quite sure. Who you make it sound like this is a conversation happening somewhere else that I missed.
No. So the show, she does not want to get back together with him because she's her ex.
Oh, what she said in the episode. Do you think that? Do you agree with that? Do you think that, like, because they're in that position of power, or is she just saying that? Like, I want to know where David falls in that romance of it all. It's interesting. I mean, I think they are already together. Like, that's I mean, the scene, some of my favorite scenes of the show are Ed and Kelly, just because, one, I love those two characters, two, I love both actors, and so I get eat my cake and have it too. That I don't have to. That there is sort
They
of
don't have
already,
to kiss in order for them.
Well,
to,
yeah, I mean,
I want them to, but
but to me, like, it's like that relationship is so rich because of one, how we write it and how those two actors perform it.
Right.
And I think Seth and Adrienne have great chemistry together on screen. So to me, I sort of already have it. I don't know that I need to make them get married.
Well, and so yeah, I think you're right, and it makes me feel a little bit better. So you don't think that? Yeah, okay. All right, I got it. I hear you. I want them to kiss a little bit more. That's all.
I thought you were shipping Taleed.
Well, yes, but if he can't have one, he's got to have the other. And now I'm not thrilled as a woman that's aging that he goes and dates young Kelly.
Only getting better like a fine wine, Jessica.
I understand, but I'm just saying, like it hurts me a little bit. It hurts, but also it's such a male thing to be like, well, why can't
yeah, but then it was like but then he had a very mature response to it, which is, this isn't working.
Well, and I think that's what I love too about Ed is the idealism that he exemplifies,
right.
And going into his optimism does make him a good leader, and and also knowing who to surround himself with in order to make himself an even better leader.
I think his optimism, his idealism, his vulnerability, the fact that he does show that he is at times scared, at times unsure, and that way you can get help from other people instead of, not having all the answers and being unwilling to get all the answers. So his arc from episode 1 of blaming Kelly for the breakup to Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, where he realized a lot of this was on me, man.
Yeah.
And that last scene where he said, I apologize for the next 5 years, and looked right at present Kelly and said, for the neglect, for being gone so much. Oh, it's a beautiful scene. You could see how far he had come
but
since then.
he made her break up with her. Like he actually, that's him saying that made her go, oh, we can't date. So it wasn't.
And then caused
ruin history.
It's kind of like saying,
got it back.
It is kind of like a guy saying, I didn't mean to hurt you.
I'm sorry you're mad.
Well, it's not dissimilar. So you're right that there's some arc there, but it's like, you know what? Take a knee, buddy. Like just
take a knee.
Can we talk about the graphic novels a little bit?
We sure can. I call them comic books.
All right, the comic books. I didn't want to.
I think he was trying to be respectful.
I know. It's like, come on, man.
I love them. I bought three different. I think there's 6 stories, two in each volume.
Yep.
Loved it, but question for you, I was a little confused. Ed did ask the question, who was it that said risk is our business? And he was like, I don't know. I'll have to Google that. But
I felt like I could take a risk in the comic that we would never do on the show. It was actually inspired by a question we got at Comic-Con. That joke was inspired by a question we got at Comic-Con, where somebody said, somebody got up and referenced the fact that one of the episodes starts with them watching a Seinfeld episode.
Right.
All right. So the person in the audience says, so if Seinfeld exists in this universe, does Star Trek exist in this universe? And Seth said, escort that person out. And it was very funny. But I thought, well, I guess Star Trek does exist in the universe, so I made a little joke in there.
Oh, that's great. How did the project come about?
I said, Seth, we got to do comics. I've been wanting to write comic books my whole life, and I thought, here's this opportunity. And Seth said, yeah, go for it. And so 20th Century Fox went out to a bunch of comic companies, and Dark Horse said, yes, absolutely. And they were on board with me writing them. Obviously, having a writer from the show write the comics really appealed to them, assuming I could adapt my writing style to comics. And then we sort of auditioned a bunch of actors. I wrote a comic book sample scene of actually it was from Krill. It's that sort of opening scene of Krill on the bridge. I wrote that as a comic book scene, and a bunch of artists took a stab at it based on how I laid it out. And Dave Cabeza, who lives in Spain, came back, and I actually we were filming, and I sort of, in the middle of shooting, we were moving cameras, and I showed Seth the choices. He said, "Yeah, it's this guy, right?" And I'm like, "Yep." And we've written 12. I've written 12 issues. I don't know if we're going to do any more, which would be sad. But it's been a fun ride, and fun for me to get to. Certainly with the ones that I did between seasons 1 and 2, I did sort of set up some stuff in season 2 in those issues, and that was fun. Season 2 and 3 was a little harder because there was such a long gap between the two of them.
So yeah, really well done on the kind of connecting the dots between 1 and 2. So the first one, New Beginnings, Ed and Gordon are going to a conference. They get shot down. They're on this planet, and they end up crawling what looks exactly to me like it was shot on location at Vasquez Rocks. Was that is that just coincidence, or me reading too much?
I don't think I said. I might have given. No, I might have given the. I don't actually remember now. I might have given that as a reference to Dave the artist. I don't actually remember.
Okay.
But that certainly was what I was going for, that sort of retro Star Trek thing of the deserty planet.
Yeah, no, that was great. And was Andre impressed by the Easter egg you put in there, the Bormanis tablet or Bormanis stone?
I don't know that Andre's seen it yet. I've referenced Andre. I've written a couple of Star Trek books. I named him Federation President after him. Andre's been he's been a good friend for many years, and he's got a great sort of unique name that works in sci-fi. So
yeah, and a great episode. I mean, not episode, issue. So you mentioned 12 issues. There's 6 stories and a part 1 and a part 2 to each. Right, is where the number 12 comes from. So I really. I'm just wondering, any of these that you wish could have been a live action?
Well, that first one I wrote, actually, I pitched when I was at Enterprise. Mm-hmm. The idea of this spaceship that crashed, that ruined a planet, that was supporting. That was one of 2 episodes that I pitched to Brannon that he liked. The other one ended up being North Star.
Okay.
They were obviously had some similarities. Rick Berman felt that the spaceship crash story was a little bit too similar to the Voyager pilot, which I didn't see actually when I pitched it. So that episode's been in my head for a long time.
Right.
And I thought, this would be a fun thing to do. We had pitched in the writer's room a couple of times the idea of Alara going to a planet and her somehow being seen as a superhero. Yeah. And that inspired my Zorro episode. I was a big Zorro fan, so I did that.
Perfect segue. So that one was called Heroes, and that's the one that I noted down that particularly spoke to me. And you said it was initially an Alara Katan story.
Well, we didn't. We never developed it. It was always like an idea that we could never figure out a good story for. Mm-hmm. And then so I just took it and made it Tala, and I thought dressing her up as Zorro was fun.
And I personally loved that it was a Tala Kiali story. We got to know
a little bit,
Halston Sage's character quite well during the first season and an eighth. But it
we're seeing more of Tala in season 3, so that's
good. And we really that was nice to kind of see her kind of star in her own story, even if it was that. So just digressing a little bit, because we're all over the place.
Yeah.
You mentioned some more in season 3. I don't want to stay, and again, no spoilers or anything like that. But man, the show had a lot of momentum going into the second half of season 2.
Right.
It started to get more accepted by the critics. The viewership went up. Just a bunch of momentum, and I think people are excited about it. You think that momentum has been kept? No, I was going to say kept alive somehow. It's been approximately
9 years, about 9 years between seasons. You think that would ruin the momentum?
Or is just that anticipation bringing it up to a boiling point and helping it out?
I think that what's great about season 3 is, it's Orville New Horizons. It's almost a reset. and the ship looks different. The bar for the production value of the episodes is up. So like the 2-part Kaelon attack on Earth in season 2, which was our biggest episodes, would be sort of considered in season 3. Well, just sort of one of our normal episodes. So
That's cool.
every episode's a barn burner. I mean, it's like such amazing storytelling throughout the season. I mean, I can sort of speak in those general terms. I'm so proud to be part of this season, so that I even feel that if somebody came to Orville in season 3 had never seen the show before, they're going to enjoy this show. It's really something. But there's also so much for the fans who obviously, I hope, have stayed with us and are going to come back. I think they're going to be very pleased with what we.
Will it continue to have more or less an episodic format to it, with obviously character development continuing throughout? Or
yeah, I mean, this is not a serialized show.
Good.
But we tell a story over the season. We both season 1 and season 2 had
a focus,
had a focus, a story arc, and we have that in season 3 as well.
Excellent.
Is there one thing that you really hope audiences walk away with, whether they're new or old, to the Orville, based off of what you think you guys accomplished?
What a question.
Does it make sense? Because I know I really
Totally
knocked it out
does.
of the park.
Totally does. I think it's a great question. I grew up on Star Trek original series, and that show expanded my mind. I read because of Star Trek. I started not just reading science fiction, I started reading history. I started reading because that show sort of excited my mind and gave me ideas about things that I was interested in that I didn't know I was interested in. So that's what I always hope for the Orville, that we're doing the same thing, that for somebody watching the show, we're opening minds and encouraging people not just to stop with the show, but to sort of read, explore, expand their minds. I mean, that was my experience of Star Trek. It's why I became a writer, but it's also why I have a lot of different interests that were, sort of spurred on by that show. And so that would be my hope, is that others would have the experience that I had.
I think you've accomplished it. I know I could say that I just watch an episode and then I take that thought with me and consider it for the duration. So I mean, you've succeeded with me. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I've been able to watch any episode and take a nugget with me that I kind of try to think about and have it inform my decision making to make me a better person.
Well, that's nice.
And
well, if we can just get 2 people's minds changed, we're really screwed. We have to get millions of people.
No, that's right. Got it. I was going to say I'm important, but you're right.
We can tell 2 friends. We're using this show to tell at least 2 other people, and so on, and so on,
and so on, and so on,
and so on. So,
Shampoo.
Are we a couple of questions for you?
Sure.
Real quick, if you don't mind. When are we going to get to see Star Wars Detours?
I don't know. It's sad. I mean, it's Disney bought Star Wars, and it didn't seem to go with whatever their plan was for their Star Wars series. It's too bad. I had a blast working on that show. I don't know what their plans are. I don't know anything. I'd love for them to release it at some point. There's 50 finished episodes sitting in a vault somewhere, and
wow.
It's a great fun show. I got to sit in a room with George Lucas for 2 weeks working on this show. An incredible experience to get to work with George, and then obviously my friends Seth Green and Matt Senreich and Tom Root and a bunch of other writers who worked on that show. But who knows?
Well, we'd love to see it. So, listeners, we have to mobilize and make sure that happens. And finally, you mentioned a couple of books you've written. Are we going to get to see an autobiography of Ed Mercer?
I'm not going to write it. Those were fun my autobiography of James C. Kirk and Jean-Luc Picard and my Federation history book were fun books to write. I don't think I'm going to go back to those worlds, but I am writing another comic for Dark Horse that'll come out probably beginning of next year, which I'm excited about, which I created, which is called Space Job, and it's sort of in this realm, so I'm very excited about it. And,
is Space Job a new sexual position?
It is not.
Okay. But
it's a job. Okay. It's a job in space.
I'm so excited. That's exciting.
Oh, so that's our big hot take for this one. So we got something coming up. Yeah. Any other projects you're working on in addition to the Orville that you want to let our listeners know about?
Well, I mean, this is completely different from the resume that you and I, the three of us, have talked about. I wrote a movie that we just finished it's going to be on Paramount Plus. It's called Honor Society. It's a high school movie. And stars Angourie Rice, who you may know from Mayor of Easttown. She played Kate Winslet's daughter in Mayor of Easttown. Very talented actress. And Gaten Matarazzo is from Stranger Things, is in it. And,
cool.
And Chris Mintz-Plasse, who played McLovin in Superbad, is in it.
I know him because he was friends with my first boyfriend because he went to El Camino High School.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And Seth Rogen or whatever the production company called El Camino and said, "We're looking for a weird kid."
That's right. That's right. Chris told me that story. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
Amazing, and now he's a cultural icon. But that movie just finished, comedy. It'll be on Paramount Plus late summer, early fall.
Awesome.
Oh, we can't wait for that. And if people want to follow you on social media, where can they do that?
At Twitter, David A. Goodman at Twitter, and
I'm gonna do that
think
right now.
that's the main one. My Instagram is private, so I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Very well. All right. Well, we cannot thank you enough for joining us today.
It was a pleasure.
We are so looking forward to season 3.
Going
on from there. And I guess at some point in the future, there'll be word on a possible season 4.
To be determined. This business that we're in, it's all matters what people watch and how much they want it, and then a bunch of weird metrics on streamers that I don't understand that determine whether they want more. So,
Probably best not to lose sleep over something like that.
You hope the audience finds you and enjoys you. So
we will do our part to try to help the audience find you.
Thank you so much.
This show has been a blast, and Jessica and I are having an absolute.
I want to have a job, so don't we all?
Yeah, I don't want to be an unemployed podcaster.
So it's a little selfish, too.
All right. Well, I'm selfish, too. I'd like to have a job. So
right? Yeah. That's how this business goes. Well, David, I can say that this has been a pleasure getting to talk to you. And it's as enjoyable as I anticipated it to be.
Oh, great. It was great getting to talk to you guys. Thank you so much for doing this podcast.
Thank you, sir. Mission Log The Orville is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Technical production by the ilorophilic Earl Green. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is podcasts.roddenberry.com.
Oh, yeah. And we'll have another supplemental episode maybe for you before we get into our exploration of the Orville New Horizons when it premieres on June 2nd. And that's it. I have nothing else to say. Thanks, David.
Still June 2nd?
As far as I know, June 2nd,
All right.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.